It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randykabc@gmail.com. Give me a follow on social media at Randy Wang Radio and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. For many years, we have detailed Gavin Newsom's habit of making a big, flashy headline without any actual follow-through to it. Gavin Newsom, big, flashy headline. Big oil is ripping you off. We're going to take their profits and write you a check. End result, Gavin Newsom had a special session that created another commission that was going to study the issue. Gavin Newsom, big, flashy headlines with not a whole lot of follow-through. Gavin Newsom, about a year ago, emergency declaration. Gavin Newsom executive order. He's going to find ways to lower your energy bills. End result, PG&E doesn't have to underground as many power lines as they said they were going to. Oh, wow. And just a few months ago, Gavin Newsom did another one of these things. Now, Gavin Newsom's had a very busy year, and he's been all over the place when it comes to the political map, exactly who he's trying to appeal to. But early in the year, he made a big, bold statement regarding workers in Sacramento, specifically people who work for the state of California, that even though we're 5 years out from the onset of the pandemic, think about that for a second, you still have over 100,000 state workers that are working remotely. I think they go in 2 days a week. And Gavin Newsom put a big flashy headline out there that just can't be. On July 1st, we're going to make sure that all employees go back to work in downtown Sacramento 4 days a week. That was the big flashy headline from Gavin Newsom. And was there follow-through on that? Well, of course not. Because ultimately, when you're talking about state workers, you're talking about the real power players in California. And Gavin Newsom loves to appear as all-powerful as he thinks he is. But he was never going to get what he wanted in this. I don't think he cared. He got the big flashy headline. Forget the follow-through. Because here we now are. It's after July 1st. And what do you know? State workers are not going back into the office 4 days a week. No. The unions representing those state workers just got a new deal that would extend that return for another year. And I bet you next year they'll extend that return for another year. And I don't fault them. As somebody that has to deal with freeway traffic 5 days a week, I'm jealous of anyone that only has to go in 4 days a week, or 3 days a week, or 2 days a week. I'm jealous of people that can work 100% remotely. I really hate driving, and it is the number one motivating factor for why I'm actively figuring out ways to move out of the state of California. This state has a lot of problems, but the traffic is the number one reason why I fantasize about moving to New Mexico. You don't know how much time I'm spending on Zillow lately. It's getting ridiculous. This isn't even a plan that I can accomplish for another 5 years, but I think about it and I talk about it every day. I probably never shut up about it to my friends and coworkers. And it's probably because I have 2 to 2.5 hours every day to think about it. And you know what? I wouldn't think about it as much if I was one of those people lucky enough to work remotely. I'm lucky enough that I get to do this show remotely. I have to rush home from the radio station in Culver City to make sure I'm here by 5 o'clock to do this show. But I'm very grateful that I'm not in Culver City until 6 o'clock. Because you think the 3 o'clock traffic is bad going back to the valley. That's nothing. But let's find out what happened here in Gavin Newsom's push to end remote work for state employees and why it failed. We go to, for this story, CBS in Sacramento.
Right, a big change for state workers tonight. They will not have to return to office 4 days a week for another year after an 11th hour negotiation announced tonight.
Gavin, first of all, as soon as he makes a big proclamation, he's completely checked out from that issue. So I don't think he was involved in this negotiation. He doesn't really care. But at the time, his political calculus thought, and this is when he was definitely moving towards the center and doing the stupid podcast, that, hey, if the feds are trying to make everyone go back to work, I'm going to do the same thing. Now I don't think he cares. So he let the SEIU run him all over.
Return to office reversal. SEIU.
Nice alliteration there.
Return to office reversal. SEIU 1000, representing 100,000 state workers, announcing a new agreement.
By the way, I know it's a big state and we got 40 million people. What do those 100,000 workers do?
SEIU 1000, representing 100,000 state workers, announcing a new agreement, pausing Governor Newsom's return to office orders. State workers will stay on their current employment agreements 2 days a week in office, not 4.
What is your emotion right now? What are you feeling?
Excitement.
She could sound more excited, but she's being muted.
Excitement.
Cecilia Wilson works for the Department of Education and is president of her district labor council and says the new...
How jealous are members of UTLA like Cecily Myert-Cruz that advocated to keep the schools closed as long as possible, that at the state level, Department of Education workers are still working remotely, only have to go in 2 days a week.
Our learning spaces are special places.
And says the new deal gives SEIU members a big win.
And it's huge. Just thinking of the gas you got to put in to get to work, and then you maybe get to work and don't even know if you could even have an office to sit in.
Yeah, that's a whole other aspect of this. It's, just saying, oh, now you have to go in 4 days a week instead of 2 days a week. That's 2 more days of cars on the road. That's 2 more days of gas. That's 2 more days of road maintenance. And for a place like downtown Sacramento, that's 2 more days of expensive parking. Because what? You going to walk there?
The change comes after SEIU protests like this one in March, calling the return to office orders out of touch.
When I took my job, it was fully remote, 100% remote.
Sharday Alcaraz works for Child Support Services. The return to office order had her considering quitting.
And I think you would see that. I think for the portion of the population that likes to work remote, it doesn't matter what the job is. If you tell them to go back to the office full time, there's definitely going to be people that say, screw you guys, I go work somewhere else. And I know a lot of those opportunities are dwindling, but they're still out there if you want to look for them. And I bet you there are some people out there that the quality of life is so greatly improved from working at home, they'll work for less money.
We'll see if I continue to work for my department, to continue to work for the state. But yeah, it definitely puts that at risk.
Governor Gavin.
If I didn't have to drive, I wouldn't own a car because we get by with just my wife's car. And that would completely lower my cost of living. My car is paid off, but the insurance on it and the registration, that's a lot of money. I don't even pay for gas in this car, but the insurance is crazy. And I'm sure that's only going up in the state of California. I would drop that. I would lower my cost of living for sure. And so I would be fine if I wasn't making as much money as I am now.
Governor Gavin Newsom.
Of course, I'm in radio, so I'm not making much to begin with.
Governor Gavin Newsom had ordered state agencies to update telework policies in March to at least 4 days a week, starting July 1st of this year. He issued a statement then, reading in part, "In-person work makes us all stronger, period. When we work together, collaboration improves, innovation thrives, and accountability increases."
I guess none of that really mattered because he caved to the unions.
That means better service, better solutions, and better results for Californians while still allowing flexibility. Now that in-person work update is on pause.
Well, besides the year pause, the SEIU also announcing their members will be getting a 3% raise this next fiscal year.
Of course.
Late tonight, we did reach out for a comment from the governor's administration. We are still waiting for that response.
So the SEIU got what they wanted. They fought and they marched in the streets, and Gavin caved because they're the real power players here. And they're very happy right now. But there's a certain portion of Sacramento that's very unhappy because when Gavin Newsom put out that return to work order, you had a lot of local businesses in downtown Sacramento that were depending on the added revenue from the workers going to those establishments, the restaurants, the snack shops, this whole... I don't love the idea that, we need everyone to go back to work and disrupt their life schedules because the sandwich shops are not getting filled out. I think we should try to figure out a better use for those spaces, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Let's hear the plight of the small businesses in downtown Sacramento that were dependent on Gavin Newsom's return to work order that he caved on. Here's CBS Sacramento.
Now, the CBS 13 News at 5:30, pressing the pause button on a return to work order for state workers. Nearly 100,000 workers now allowed to continue working from home. This last second change impacting more than just state workers, though.
Your reporter covering Sacramento County, Tori Apodaca, joining us live from the Capitol, getting answers on what this means, though, for businesses, Tori. I know they were hoping everyone would make a comeback and help them out.
I just don't love the idea of, we have to do it. Otherwise, all these businesses won't have anybody. It's so sad. Well, then we should figure out other uses for those buildings. If people don't want to go back to work, then maybe we should sell all the government-owned buildings in Sacramento and change them into housing, change them into mixed use. If they don't want to use the office spaces, then don't use the office spaces. Then you'll have people in those downtowns. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a city planner. Maybe people don't want to live in a downtown. I don't.
Tony.
Well, in California.
Tony Marley, that's exactly right. You may remember downtown used to be a lot more bustling with people pre-pandemic, but now that those state workers have been working from home for over 5 years now, many...
Boy, their union is strong. This is all because of the pandemic, right? Well, people just got used to it. And you know what? Good for them. If that's what the workers want... and that's what the union fights for, and they can make Gavin Newsom look weak, I guess it's win-win-win. Now we just got to figure out how to support the sandwich shop.
Years now, many downtown businesses say that they have been struggling, and now they will have to wait for more business even longer.
If you couldn't hear that, it's because these chant lines are getting less catchy by the day. That was hell no to the RTO. Hell no to RTO. Hell no to RTO.
All of these state workers picketing for the past...
I don't know what it is. Chanting just makes us as a species sound inherently dumb.
All of these state workers picketing for the past few months paying off with the return to office pause.
Feeling like the stress has been lifted and one that feel like more money's in their pocket.
More money staying in state workers' pockets.
There is a cost to having to go into the office every day. That is a real thing. And I guess what the union was like, well, then you got to give us more money. But then, you know what the union did? They got to stay at home and they got more money.
But not in the pockets of struggling downtown Sacramento business owners.
We are thriving off of them, 100%. Those are, I'm going to say 98% of our customers are these 2 days a week people.
If you love Sacramento.
I wonder if the shops are only open those 2 days a week now.
If you love Sacramento, this is not a good thing.
John Vignoki is a local developer, saying no state workers in the office is bad for existing businesses and for attracting new ones.
Kind of shows like who runs the government. Certainly not Newsom.
You know, Gavin Newsom has tried to put himself on the national stage all week long with the signing of the budget and his stupid lawsuit against Fox and his stunt press conference about the executive order with the wildfires and his press conference today with the tax credit. Gavin Newsom is trying to get a whole lot of attention. Meanwhile, he's so not paying attention to his day job that he got outmaneuvered by the SEIU, who defeated one of his big edicts in 2025. Gavin was the guy that said all state workers back in the office 4 days a week starting July 1st. And the SEIU said no and give us more money. And they won.
And for attracting new ones.
Kind of shows like who runs the government. Certainly not Newsom, not the legislators, not the people who said that they want these workers back, 5 years after they vacated.
Governor Gavin Newsom has stayed strong.
Yeah, once you're at that point, they're not coming back. The people, if you force them to go 4 days a week, they will quit. People are more, especially for state government work. I don't know how many people are that passionate about what they do. They'll go find another gig because they like working in their jammies.
Governor Gavin Newsom has stayed strong in his stance on the return to office mandate.
No, he isn't. He doesn't care anymore. He lost. He got the union said no to him, and the union's in charge. The same thing that happened when they tried to reopen the schools. The unions were the ones that said no.
I think it's important that people collaborate. I think it's important people get the benefits, particularly young employees, of mentorship and support.
That was him back in May, but he's now gone silent with a last-minute switch-up.
Even though it's impacting your business?
Even though it'll impact my business, I will still be on the employee side, the state worker side.
She doesn't like parking in Sacramento either.
The no-go for RTO, a win for state workers, but another challenge for downtown businesses.
I think that it gives more opportunity for businesses also to do something outside of the box, to attract people.
Well, that's the thing. If the workers aren't coming back, then the local electeds are got to figure out how to redevelop that area or how to incentivize people to go down there. You're starting to see all these talk about entertainment zones, or San Francisco, they got their first Thursdays where they turn everything into a block party. If you've got a downtown that's struggling, you got to figure out how to activate and how to get people down there. And if you're going to try to do that by forcing the most powerful entity in the state to do what they don't want to do, you're going to lose.
There truly has been such a fight for those state workers over the past few months, those labor unions coming to the negotiation and agreement that the state workers will not have to return to office 4 days a week until July 1st, 2026.
Yeah, and they will push that back. Guaranteed. Of course, that does leave the question, what do you do with all these buildings downtown? All these nearly empty office buildings, not just in downtown Sacramento, downtown San Francisco, downtown Oakland, downtown Los Angeles. What do we do with them? We're going to explore what can be done to them when we come back. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Hey, do you ever only catch half of this show, or you weren't in the car one day and you want to know what you missed out on? It's real easy to catch up on every episode. We do an hour every day, 5 days a week. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang. Just search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify. Search for the KABC News Blitz, hit subscribe, and you can download all the episodes. You can also do what George Gascon does to himself every single night.
Do a Google on YouTube.
Because we're on YouTube. Every time I hit post on a podcast, it goes straight to YouTube. You can search for the KABC News Blitz. When you see an episode, you can like, you can subscribe, you can share with your friends. Let everyone know the show that you're listening to, the most local focused show in Los Angeles. I have no evidence to back that up, but I'm just going to say it. When we come back, we are going to figure out what exactly we do with all these empty downtown buildings now that the Sacramento unions have said, we're not coming back to work. It's not happening. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com. You can give me a follow on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Randy Wang Radio, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. So we told you last half hour that even though Gavin Newsom made this massive proclamation that 100,000 state workers would return 4 days a week to in-person work in downtown Sacramento, the unions are the ones that are really in charge, and they said no, and now that date's being pushed back a year. And you have empty downtowns in Sacramento. You have empty office buildings in San Francisco, in San Jose, in Los Angeles, in Oakland, all over the state. You have downtowns with a lot of empty office space. And it might be time to start thinking, what else can we do with these spaces? Because you keep hearing over and over and over again how this state is in a housing crisis, which is interesting if you look at how many vacancies we have for certain kinds of housing, like the stupid luxury apartments they build in downtown LA, the unbelievably ridiculous luxury hotels they build in downtown LA, when what exactly is there to do unless you're a Laker fan or a Kings fan? And, of course, the empty office buildings that, for a lot of people, I don't see them coming back because there's a lot of aspects of working downtown that are just not attractive to the current crop of workers, evidenced by the SEIU saying, hell no, we're not going back to downtown Sacramento. So what do we do with these buildings? Turn them all into homeless shelters? Maybe. Actually, I do have an idea. I was thinking about this today as the city of Sacramento is debating whether or not to ban homeless from sleeping on the steps of City Hall in Sacramento. I think every city hall in the entire state should be a homeless shelter at night. And we should invite all the homeless to live in the chambers of the LA City Council. And if you have a problem getting them out in the morning, that's on you. Just something I'm working on. But when it comes to all of these office buildings, including some of these government-owned office buildings in a place like Sacramento, what do we do? Is there a way to convert all of these buildings to residential? How difficult is that process? Well, San Francisco has been working on that for quite some time because while a lot of San Francisco has bounced back from the pandemic and all the doom loops and everything else, downtown is a shell of what it once was, and I don't see it coming back anytime soon. Heck, this company had leased a giant space downtown. They got out of that lease for a million reasons, but that's just yet another business that is not downtown in San Francisco anymore. For more on the difficulties when converting office to residential, which you would think would be something we would want to encourage, since we have all of these buildings that are sitting empty in a housing crisis, let's go to ABC 7 in the Bay Area.
More than a year ago, then San Francisco Mayor London Breed revealed her plan to add needed housing by converting commercial spaces into residential units. Now Mayor Daniel Lurie has upped the ante by adding incentives to convert those properties.
ABC 7 Building a Better Bay Area reporter Leanne Melendez is here, and she tells us if it's motivation enough to build. Leanne?
Well, I'm hearing that it's a good deal, but we'll see.
Doesn't sound very encouraging.
They're not really jumping at it yet, but you know, let's say I own an office building. In order to convert it, I'm going to need a lot of money. Now, what the city would do is once the building is converted, you get a rebate. So money back every year for 30 years. Now, it sounds promising, but right now developers say there's a lot of uncertainty.
All right, let's see. What exactly are the issues here when you're trying to incentivize developers to take an office building and convert it into residential housing? Because there's a lot of empty office buildings. You know, there's just a lot of empty retail as well. I was driving around Studio City the other day, and I used to live in the Valley Village area. Not only did I not recognize the neighborhood at all, I mean, Valley Village doesn't even have 4 and 20 pies anymore. What happened? But I saw so many empty strip malls and strip malls with vacancy. It feels like for as much as we complain that there's no room to build anything anywhere, there is so much empty retail that I don't think is coming back.
Building conversions are a challenge, but not always impossible. San Francisco has a history of converting office spaces into residences. 46 condos were developed at the Royal Insurance Building at Sampson and Pine Streets. The old Chronicle building is now a Ritz-Carlton residence on Market Street.
That doesn't sound cheap.
52 units there were converted. The Bank of Italy building, later named Bank of America at 1 Powell Street, was transformed into 44 lofts. And the largest conversion happened at 100 Van Ness, the old AAA building, now home to 418 rental units.
So this is something that can be done and has been done over the years. What are the hurdles?
The architect explained how they did it.
And the biggest thing that we did at the building was to remove the old precast concrete facade and to replace that with floor-to-ceiling glass to really allow the view potential in the building to be realized.
That guy sounds like he is the host of Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous. Okay, what's this?
That project started in 2013. Today, a hard reality is hitting developers like Mark Babson of the Emerald Fund.
The exact same building that we're in today, if we bought it out today, would cost 70% more. 70% more than 2013 in these 12 years.
Construction costs have increased at a faster rate than rents in San Francisco.
I had a feeling we were going to get to this. It's the problem with all building outside of so many other things. It's just gotten so much more expensive. And a lot of that is materials, but a lot more of that is labor.
So for many developers, the numbers simply do not add up. Last October, then Mayor London Breed announced the office-to-housing conversion at 785 Market Street, the old Humboldt Bank building. But the developer appears to have now hit the pause button. Supervisor Raphael Mandelman is staying realistic in these uncertain times.
You know, where are we going? Are we headed into recovery? Are we headed into recession? That'll make a difference. What happens with interest rates? What happens with tariffs?
There is a lot of uncertainty right now, and I gotta say, just as somebody that daydreams about their own escape from living in the San Fernando Valley to somewhere that's actually walkable, the fact that I bought this place in the middle of the pandemic when interest rates were in the 2s, and now interest rates are in the 6s, I can't move or realistically sell this place and buy another place until those rates come down, and I don't know when that's happening.
Here's what the city has done to incentivize developers. A year ago, we told you the city's permitting process had been expedited and planning fees reduced. But there's more to it. Developers who convert, then later sell the building, no longer have to pay the 6% transfer fee.
Oh, they have that up there, too. This is something that has made development of multifamily buildings in Los Angeles a real pain in the ass. ULA, the quote-unquote mansion tax. Because if a developer was to build an apartment building in Los Angeles, maybe they want to convert an empty office building into an apartment building and then sell it to a management company because they don't want to be the landlord. Well, that 5% ULA tax makes that real difficult.
Check. Conversions are exempt from affordable housing requirements. Check.
Oh, I like that too. Because affordable housing is just a lottery system that's really not fair to anybody.
That was all done to try to add housing and revitalize downtown.
We will continue to adapt
we will adjust, and we will be better.
And now Mayor Daniel Lurie has signed to legislation aimed at continuing the work of his predecessor. It would reimburse the yearly tax increases that an owner would have to pay.
That increased tax would actually come back to the owner of the building as an incentive for them to take on the project in the first place.
You know, as much as, we think of developers as being incredibly greedy, like the ones that bribe the LA City Council, boy, is it difficult to build here just to jump all through these hoops.
Let's say you converted the building and now the added value is $209 million. The building would be eligible for a city rebate. In this case, that's nearly $1.4 million in the first year alone. That would increase each year as taxes went up. Over 30 years, that really adds up.
So it's a real value to the property, a huge reduction of the expenses of operating the building.
Members of the Board of Supervisors are optimistic that it will increase conversion developments. The vote to pass the legislation was unanimous.
And I hope it works because we got a lot of empty buildings, which is so bizarre when we're in a housing crisis. And as evidenced by the 100,000 state workers that overwhelmingly said, we're not going back to work, Gavin Newsom, it's not happening, then it's time to start figuring out what we do with these buildings. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Bob in Encino. Bob, hello.
Unless and until all regulations regarding building, all regulations, all of these environmental regulations, unless they're pared down to the bare minimum. I mean, today they were all in Sacramento. They were all so happy they passed this tax credit. Well, it's a tax credit for the film industry. It's not a grant of money. They're going to have to go out and make films. But if they can't go do the scene they want to do because of some environmental problem, how are they going to make money and get the tax credit? So the state is doomed. I'm kind of happy I have a condo in another state where there's normal people. I'm not telling you where, St. George, Utah. But, and don't move there. Don't move there. They hate people from L.A. Anyway.
We'll keep that one a secret, Bob.
All right. And I also, I hang out in Santa Fe where you like. Anyways.
It's a good spot. Thanks so much for the call, Bob. Appreciate it. Let's go to Bill in La Cañada. Bill, hello.
Hey, Randy, I was just wondering, does KABC give its employees lifetime jobs and allow them to dictate the terms of employment with no fear of ever getting fired?
Boy, that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, what happened to the idea of public sector gratitude to us taxpayers for letting these whiners get such high-paying jobs, relatively low skill for the most part, and a guaranteed lifetime job?
They have a very, very, very powerful union, and those unions are the ones that give all the money to elect the people that they want in elected office that will give everything they want to the unions. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Thanks so much for the call, Bill. Appreciate it. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We took that call from Bob, and he said, if the state wants to start building, we got to kill a lot of regulations. Well, one of the things that is kind of getting bipartisan support that happened this week is when Gavin Newsom signed the budget, the legislature overwhelmingly bipartisan support passed a bill that would kill CEQA when it comes to infill housing. That means building housing on places that are already zoned for housing, not some hillside. And what's very interesting is who exactly it was filing a lot of these CEQA lawsuits that were halting so much development in California. We'll see if we have enough time to play some of this. Here's a report from KPIX in the Bay Area.
Robert Selna is an attorney who's represented developers trying to build new housing, much like the project that was supposed to go here at the empty field across the street from the West Oakland BART station.
We have abandoned spaces.
Wait, so we have an abandoned space that's right next to a BART line? I thought that's exactly the kind of housing they want to build.
They're going to be filled with something. Is it better for them to be filled with houses, or is it better to be filled with garbage?
Robert said he's familiar with the project and the developers, and everything was moving ahead, but then faced a 1.5-year-long delay when they were hit with a CEQA lawsuit.
Oh boy, which environmentalists went after them?
Not filed by environmental groups, but instead labor unions.
What? Oh no.
And according to a letter sent to the Planning Commission, it was specifically Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 342, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 595, Sheet Metal Workers Local 104, and Sprinkler Fitters Local 483.
Developer, we want you to meet our labor standard demands. If you don't, there's an opportunity for us to object to your project, oppose your project, appeal your project based on CEQA.
Were you aware that a large portion of the lawsuits when it comes to the California Environmental Quality Act weren't being filed by environmental groups, not by the Sierra Club, but by organized labor that was blackmailing developers to hire their people and pay them prevailing wages, which, I don't know, drives up even more the cost of building housing? Feel like there's been a theme to today's show. Organized labor is very, 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 very powerful in the state of California. Whether it's labor unions suing developers with CEQA to delay their project unless they get their demands, or it's the SEIU representing 100,000 state workers that told Gavin Newsom to take this job and shove it because they're not going back to the office. And so now they're staying home and they got a raise. Nice work if you can get it. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.